All right, so if we look at the problem where we have to create our own Venn diagram, situation is it tells us that students surveyed 758 spectators at a tennis match, and this is the results that they got. So of those 78, 421 are male. We see that 256 have a two-hand backswing, and then 176 of those have a two-handed backswing are female. So what we have to do is draw a Venn diagram. There we have it there, and label our data. So the most important thing when it comes to creating a Venn diagram is labeling the names of each of these two circles. If we mess that part up, then we are going to get the entire Venn diagram wrong, and all of our data is going to be off. But there's something very important to see from this. In each kind of problem where you have to create your own Venn diagram, there's going to be two things that are going on. So in this situation, if we kind of break down what they got from their survey, is they figured out if the people who got surveyed were male or female, so we have that mentioned. And then they also mentioned if they had a two-handed backswing. So did they have a two-handed backswing? And then, of course, if they didn't, they wouldn't have put that. So we can assume that that's going to be our other option. So there's two things going on. So I'm just going to call this two topics. Our first topic is that the people in the survey are male or female. And the second is that they have a backhand or they don't have a backhand. So those are the two things that are going on. So what we're going to do when we label our Venn diagram, we are going to pick one of each. So we're going to pick one of each topic. So we're going to pick either male or female, either backhand or not a backhand. What we're not going to do, I'm going to write this in red, what we're not going to do is we're not going to pick both from the same category or for the same topic. If I label these backhand and not backhand, for example, then right here in the middle, it's hard for me to put a number because that's implying that the tennis player can hit backhand and not hit backhand, which doesn't make sense because on their survey they said yes or no, so there shouldn't be a crossroads between both of them. Same thing if it's out here, what number I would have out here. That's implying of the number of people who don't have a backhand and not have a backhand. So we have to be really careful when we label these that we pick one of each. So it doesn't matter which ones we pick, your numbers are going to turn out a little different in the chart, but overall it will still be the same in terms of the total adding up to this and each of those being the same. So it doesn't matter which ones we pick, our numbers will still turn out to be nice. So between male and female, let's say that I decide to go with male for this first bubble, and then I decide to go with backhand, so they have a backhand swing for this bubble. So if I look at this bubble right here, I got four numbers basically I'm going to put in. If I look at the first thing it tells me is that I have 421 males that were in this survey. So between this number here and this number that goes in here, that needs to be my total number of males. And then when I look at some of the other numbers I have, it tells me how many are female, and I can plug the female numbers in from here or here since they're outside of that male bubble. So let's go ahead and get started in terms of filling this out. If I look at this very last one, it tells me 176 people with a backhanded swing are female. So of course, then they aren't going to be in this male bubble, but they have a backhand. So I'm going to write 276. So that was information that was provided for me. Something else interesting to see is the second one right here, where it tells me 256 have a two-handed backswing. So that is the combined total. I know that 176 of those are going to be female, which I have here. So the rest of them that are going to be backhanded are going to go right here, and those are going to be males. So all I would have to do is subtract these two numbers. So if I subtract, I'm going to do different colors for these so we can kind of keep up where these numbers come from. If I subtract my total number of people with a backhand swing, and I subtract that from the total number of females with a backhanded swing, I'm going to get the number of people or in this case would be males, who have a backhanded swing, which is going to be 80. So I subtract those two, it's going to be 80, and of course when I add it back up, I'll get back to what I have here. So next thing I need to do, I can figure out how many males have a backhanded swing, because it tells me this right here. Switch colors, of course, but it tells me that I got 421 males. I know of those, 80 have a backhanded swing. So I am going to subtract those two numbers, and I'm going to get 341. So 341 males have a backhanded, or do not have a backhanded swing. 80 of them do, 341 of them don't. When I add these two numbers together, I'm going to get that 241 as the total number of males. So I have three numbers. I need to get my final number, and that's the number that's going to go outside of my Venn diagram. So this one's probably the easiest one of them all, but the only way we get this correct is if these three are correct. So if we mess up a little where we're gonna, and then one spot, we're gonna mess up overall. But if I know that I have 256 total spectators there, I'm gonna subtract out all these numbers, all three of those. When I do that, I'm going to get 161. So that means 161 spectators said that they are female. So keep in mind, this is outside the male bubble, so they are female, and they do not have a backhanded swing. To double check my work, if I add all four of these numbers together, I should get back to my 756, and I would be able to do that by plugging it in. Before I go into the questions, one other thing that I like to do with these problems is write out exactly what these numbers mean. So I'm going to do that here on the side. So we'll start with our male. So I have 341 males without a backhanded swing. So that's what that number represents right there. I should see that I have 80 in the middle. So that 80 represents males with a backhanded swing. If I keep just going across, I see that I have 756 females this time with a backhanded swing. And then that last number right there represents how many females do not have a backhanded swing. So I have 601 females without a backhanded swing. So like I said, this is the most important part of these problems. If you cannot get the Venn diagram straight or get that correct, then the rest of your numbers that you get aren't going to be able to match. The most important thing from this is this part right here, is labeling the names of your two bubbles. If you can't get that right, if you do male and female here, it's going to mess it up. If you do backhand and not backhand here, it's going to mess it up. So we have to be careful, figure out what's the two topics going on, pick one of each, plug it in here, and then be careful with our numbers. After this, answering these questions are super easy because you just did that on the previous section. But getting it set up is the most important part, and that's why I wanted to have a separate video and kind of focus in on that. So from here, you should be able to do 7 through 11. 11's on the top of the next page. So I want you to try 7 through 11 on these. So if you don't have this information down, of course, have a copy down. But I want you to try 7 through 11. The rest of these problems should be pretty easy, just like what we did. Keep in mind, here's the total number of spectators that we have. So read the problems carefully, get the numbers, and get your percentages. So go ahead and try those 5 problems on your own. All right, so here is our answers to these problems. So number 1 was just asking the probability of us picking a male. So that one's given to us the total number of males, which was 100 or 421. So we just divide that by our sample space and round correctly. Number 8 was a little tricky because if we look at those bullet points, it doesn't directly tell us how many females that we have. So that's something that we have to figure out on our own. If I look at the numbers outside of the male bubble, I should see that I have 176 and 161. So those are two numbers I'm going to add together, and then I'll get my 44.46% there. Number 9 was asking for the backhanded swing. So if I look at that, I'm going to take the number of backhanded, so that was one that was also given to me, that second bullet point, 256. Divide that by our sample space, and there's a percentage that we get. And lastly, number 10, well, before we get to 11, but on 10, it said male or has a two-handed backswing. The way that I set the Venn diagram up is perfect for that, because if I add those three numbers across, the 341, the 80, and the 176, if I add all of those across, that's going to give me my answer for this. So here is males without a backhand, males with a backhand, so that covers all the males. And then I add in how many females have a backhand and get those numbers. I'm going to get pretty close to 79%. The one I really want to focus on is number 11. So we did a problem similar to like this, number 5, where we have the given to us. So given that a person is male, so from that point I need to know, I'm just talking strictly about the males who took the survey. It wants to know how many of those do not have a two-handed backswing. So there's 421 males, and of those, 341 do not have a backhand. So those are the two numbers I'm going to divide. So my sample space becomes the males. I'm dividing to figure out what's the probability that I pick a student without, or a male without a backhand. I'm going to get 81% for that. So it's going to wrap up this section here. Kind of lays the foundation for the rest, but this last section of being able to correctly label a Venn diagram is very, very important, because you will see this pop up on quizzes and on tests, and it's typically where students I've seen struggle in the past. So it's going to wrap up this lesson on Venn diagrams and two-way frequency tables.